It has been a while. Goodness, 2 months since I actually have a live broadcast. So, welcome to this short and sweet session about Boundaries 101. So, for my returning viewers, welcome back. And for my new ones, my name is Melanie, and I'm a licensed counselor, energy healer, as well as a trainer. I wear many hats and I run a healing business that focuses on making a difference in people's lives by helping them to heal themselves. So, in the next 30 minutes or so, I'll talk a little bit about what boundaries are from different perspectives. And this includes their types, their, for lack of better words, qualities, and answering a few questions, especially in regards to this time and age where everything is basically from online now, and basically everyone is just working from home. Okay, um, I mean, who gets it, right? Like when you wake up, the first thing you do is you just put on a presentable top, and then you're poof online, and you're having your meetings 9 to 5, sometimes back to back. So I will end the session with what I call energetic clearing and healing session. As you know, I am an energy healer. I'm trained in Usui Reiki and Theta Healing. And in this energetic session, which happens later at the end of the show, um, I'll be asking your permission to witness some downloads. And all you have to do is say yes if you want to. And these downloads are applicable even though you're watching the replay. Okay, with that being said, we shall begin. And yes, good evening, good evening. Nice to meet you. Okay, so here's the story on why I want to talk about boundaries. A few weeks ago, I actually came into a block, and the block is that I was getting very drained at work. For those of you who may know, I was very active on LinkedIn, and then at one point I asked, like I said, I want to take a break. And the reason behind the break is because my life was surrounded by work, 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 and work. And it got to a point where I got very resentful of work. To me, when resentment develops, it's a huge red flag for me to really look into what's going on. So I took a good break from even doing my live shows, and I did an in-depth soul-searching journey to talk about boundaries today. I believe everything happens for a purpose, and for my fellow viewers who are my regulars or who have seen my posts, I'm the kind of person where if I discover knowledge that can help, I'm usually the first one who will be sharing the wisdom. So boundaries are essentially our protective mechanism that helps us to differentiate ourselves from the world. Um, think of boundaries like a bubble, okay, and we are in that bubble, okay. And depending on the situation, the location, the environment, and even our internal world, the quality of the bubble will change, okay. Sometimes it will be very spiky, sometimes it will be smooth, and other times it might collapse by itself. So these are basically the three different kinds of qualities of any boundary. First, by starting with the rigid boundary. A rigid boundary is what I nickname as the Great Wall of China. Okay, it's rigid, it's stiff. Okay, it's a very clear cut yes or no on certain things. For some people, it's spiky. It's like back off. No, no, no entry. No, no, no. So there are certain situations where you got to have more rigid boundaries. For example, now that we're still living in the time of the pandemic, maybe a more rigid boundary is that you don't go out of the house without your face mask on, because if you do so, you get punished. or you place yourself in danger. So it's a very clear cut yes or no. A balanced one, I call a flexible one, are those where it changes its quality between more rigid to more porous. Okay, hopefully I pronounce it properly. And it all depends on the situation. Say, for example, if you are a parent with a child, and you know there are certain times where you got to say a clear no to certain things that your child wants. For example, more screen time when you know it's past their bedtime. Or if, for example, your child wants to have more playtime on the daytime, then maybe you can say yes. Okay, so the balanced boundaries, a balanced sense of boundaries, they usually have the quality of discernment, where you know when to be more rigid and when to be more flexible. Then you have the porous ones, where basically I call them the revolving door. Okay, there is no stop, there's no end to it, and this is where I would say that there are times where you have that. Okay, and there are times where it's not very wise to do that. So if, for example, you are an employer, okay, and you are supervising a team, if one of your team members or your employees are going through a tough time mentally, okay, and he or she comes to you and requests for a half day leave, okay, then you can within your own discernment and good judgment allow the person to have a half day leave. But if the employee comes into work and you know that that person's intoxicated with drugs or is not really stable, then being porous is not a very wise uh, choice. Okay, so these are basically the simplified way of explaining the different qualities of boundaries. You see. So let me just check. Hello, 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 gentlemen. Hi, Chienu, Andreas. And Jeffrey, good evening. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming. Okay. All right. So now we talk about the types of boundaries. Once again, this is a simplified version. There's many articles, journals, and even books that talk about this. And this simplified version is basically what I've observed in my work as a trauma therapist and energy healer, and even on my own work. And we all start with the physical boundary. Okay, the physical boundary is very straightforward. It's about our physical body. If I were to simplify it even further in the form of question, is this. Okay, how do you want people to approach your personal space physically? Right now, we have a lot of SOPs. Okay, so a physical boundary means, for me, would be, okay, I don't shake hands with people because we are in the time of pandemic. Shaking hands might not be the wise thing. I don't allow people to touch me from shoulder down, okay, or knee up, because anything beyond that, I consider it as a violation, especially for strangers. I don't touch people's possessions without their permission, because that's a physical boundary. Okay, so if you notice the language I'm using both like a language that refers to the external person and even internal. Because remember this, if you want your boundaries to be respected, you got to respect your own boundaries. You got to respect other people's boundaries. Or else your behaviors are inconsistent and it's telling the other party that, you know what, the person is not very consistent in his or her boundaries. Let's barge through anyway. Okay? So basically, that's physical boundaries. Okay. Now, mental boundaries are quite interesting. Okay. If I were to put it in a question form, mental boundaries are this. Um, how would you like your ideas, your thoughts, your worldviews to be respected? Everyone here knows we all have opinions and we have many, many, many thoughts floating all the time. So, are we responsible for other people's opinions or are we responsible for our own? Do we accept other people's opinions without discernment, or we just notice, say thank you, and then if it is aligned, we can consider. If it's not aligned, then we said, okay, that's yours, this is mine. All right. And this also comes to the, I would say, the territory of influence. Okay. And I mean, the NLP guru here, Andreas, will talk about influence a lot more than I do. However, that's basically that, how do we influence people, okay, through our speech? How do we change people's mindset through our speech or even through our actions? And this also comes to the topic of interest as well. What do you like about your life? What do you like to study? What are your interests? Um, More often than not, parents come to me in the past and say that my child, he's not interested in this, he's more interested in gaming and this, could you change his perception? And I would say this, every child has his or her own right to develop his or her own interest. My role here is to hold the space for the exploration, unless if that interest is of harm to itself or others, then of course I will actually need to intervene, because that's part of my profession as a counselor. So, I mean, I can talk more and more about mental boundaries, because more often than not, a lot of people do not know, how much disrespect of when it comes to this aspect, that they experience on a day-to-day basis. Then we talk about the emotional boundaries. I would say that one is actually a hot potato for a lot, because emotions are something that's very personal and very intense. Emotional boundaries basically says this: am I allowed to express how I feel? Okay. Am I allowed to be seen and heard, for the feelings that I express? Am I allowed to feel things? Okay. In the Asian setting, feelings have been demonized a lot, and thankfully, in the time of this pandemic, people are waking up and realize, hey, feelings have a reason. Okay, just because I'm feeling not so good about myself today does not mean I will feel not good about myself my entire life. And people are starting to listen more. So, emotional boundaries also refers to ourselves. How much do we actually listen to our heart, to our emotions? Do we stuff it in one corner and say, you know what, I don't like this emotion? No, 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 no. Or do we allow it to appear in a safe and healthy manner and allow it to fade away? Because that's what emotions do. They appear, they send a message. Okay, usually it's a physiological message. We interpret it and then we let it go. And we don't let it go, and if it's repeating over and over again, that means there's something deeper. And that's where you go to practitioners, either an NLP practitioner, a counselor, a healer, a hypnotherapist, or even a coach, to just figure out, hey, what's going on here? Okay. And finally, energetical. Now, this is not about energetical in a more what they call spiritual sense, but it's basically the expenditure of energy on a daily basis. Shianu asked a very powerful question. How do we manage our boundaries online? Now, let me tell you this. Since the pandemic started, one of the main boundary that keeps getting violated is time. We are not managing our time properly, especially our time online. And what happens is that we start to get drained. I mean, who can resonate here? If you can't just say yes, just say yes. Now you're spending more time online. And even if you're not spending time online, you're either looking at your phone, you're responding to both your emails on your laptop and then your messages on the phone. And it gets really convoluted here. Now with the upcoming term, work-life integration, okay, I could see that that's the trend now, because we are still working from home. Most companies are going on into a blended approach. And my question is, how sure are you that you can separate work and life clearly? Because a CEO of a company and a mother may require two different skill sets, but the person that's wearing these two hats is still the same person. So it's a lot about managing your energy levels. If, for example, you wake up, you feel like, you know what, I feel like 50% today because maybe I didn't have a good night's sleep. So, how are you able to utilize this 50% wisely and allow yourself that necessity to rest? I use the word necessity because rest is a necessity. All right. Time off is a necessity. We are human beings. Okay, we need time to take a break. And this also includes relationships as well. I guess you all can resonate when it comes to relationships. You just speak to someone, at the end of the call, you are drained. Like, ugh, what just happened? I need to take 1 week off. Who can resonate? If you can, just type yes. And this is what happens because sometimes we might not know, but we got sucked into the person's conversation or worldview, or some people, the vibe, the vibration, and you realize, oh no, something unbalanced here. Okay, that's where the term energetic vampires start appearing. In my perspective, energy vampires are basically people who need a lot of love. And they do not know how to respect other people's boundaries and to ask properly. So all they know is give me, give me, give me, give me. Oh, energy. All right. So here's how it works. Okay. You don't need to create a 10,000 megawatt electric fence around your boundaries. All you have to do is to center yourself in your heart space and truly believe that, number one, you are sacred. Your space is sacred. Your space is important and therefore is worthy of respect. And the next step is acting on it behaviorally. That means, number one, if you set a boundary for yourself, please respect it. I'll give you an example. When someone comes and message me on Sundays, especially for a session or for whatever that is, okay, I sit with myself and I ask myself, okay, what is the boundary that I set on Sundays? And the boundary is that I don't talk about work on Sundays because Sunday is my most precious off day. Sometimes I don't listen to myself and I actually respond, and that is already a green light for the other party to say, okay, she's available on Sundays. Let me go and message you on Sundays again. All right. Is that the other person's fault? No. I allowed it. Okay. So if you want people to respect your boundaries, please find out what are your boundaries in the first place and respect it yourself. If someone comes and says an inappropriate joke, you come to yourself and say, hey, something feels off right here. Develop the courage and bravery and say, okay, that's not funny. Would you like to explain the joke to me? I think this is very applicable right now when we're talking about harassment, we're talking about inappropriate jokes in the workplace. And I was part of it, in a sense where people made very inappropriate jokes towards me. And in the past, my automatic response was to laugh at it. That act of laughter was actually a form of a survival response, okay, in which I will explain hopefully in the future, where I want to please the person and to appear non threatening. But I'm sending the message that I'm complacent, therefore, this kind of behavior is acceptable and the person will do it again. So, there are times where you will learn, and there are times where you realize certain methods don't really work. So, the key point here is this: do you know your boundaries? Okay, you list them down. Okay, this is I would say an invitation for all of you who are watching to list down what are your boundaries based on these categories and make an honest assessment. Do you need to adjust them? Are you respecting them in the first place? What do you do if people don't respect your boundaries? Can you stand up and speak up for yourself without, you know, getting violent, getting so worked up? You're allowed to feel upset, yes, but do you allow that feeling to overwhelm you? It's a very common thing I hear among people is that I'm afraid to set boundaries because I believe that if I set boundaries, I need to go aggressive. I need to go and fight this person. In which I say, no, that's not the case. You don't need to bring your garlics and steaks and your cross to fight energy vampires, quote unquote. You don't. All you need to know is worthiness, okay, respect, and say out. Yeah, speak up with confidence. Okay, so we are going into the energetic clearing and healing session. Okay, before I start that, are there any questions for me? Just looking at this. Yes. Hi, Ainu. Hi, Jiva. Hi, Kuti. Yeah, I get what you mean. Okay. All right. So the energetic clearing session, it's basically this. I'll be connected. Okay, I'll actually come up, I'll channel some of the downloads. All right. In this session, okay, in this section basically, I will use the word creator. Okay, creator in this case, I refer to a higher power, irrespective of religion. And when I ask for permission, like for example, would you like to have this, you say yes verbally. You don't need to type it out. Okay, and these downloads are still accessible in the replay as well. Okay, so this is how it works. Let's just see. Okay. Would you like to know that it's safe and it's possible to have strong, healthy boundaries without obligating aggression or violence in order to do so? If you like it, say yes verbally, and I'll witness the downloads. Would you like to know that it's safe and it's possible for you to live your life without getting disrespected at all times? Would you like to know the Creator's definition, perspective, understanding, highest truth of what respect is? And would you like to know the Creator's definition, perspective, understanding of what boundaries are and what healthy boundaries feel like in a day-to-day basis? Would you like to know that you're loved? And would you like to know that you are worthy to receive love from others in the highest and best way without sacrificing yourself? Can I release the need to sacrifice yourself in order to prove your worth? And can I release the need to prove your worth in order to receive love, care, support, and nurturing from others? Would you like to know what it feels like to be appreciated for who you are and what you do. And would you like to know that all is well in your world, and it can be every day in every way in the highest and best way, easily and effortlessly. Okay. And would you like to know how to be appreciated and how to accept and receive appreciation from others, including yourself, in the highest and best way? If you would like all of these downloads, say yes verbally. All right. And we are done. Okay. Let me know in the comment section, what have you learned today and how you're feeling? Would love to know. Okay. So right now it's a good time to practice boundaries. First and foremost, by respecting yourself. If, for example, there's something that you can do within the next 24 hours or so, is to check in with yourself in terms of your sleep, your food, even your movement, time spent with family. Do you need a break? Do you need a break from work? Okay. Hi, Naga. Yeah, you're more than welcome to watch the replay. You'll still be around. Okay. All right. So I would like to share, in order to close this session, as I mentioned, it's a short and sweet session. I would like to close this session with a poem from one of my favorite authors. His name is Jaya John, and he was the one who inspired me to really come up with this live session today. And it goes like this. Your boundary need not always be an angry electric fence that shocks those who touch it. It can be a consistent light around you that announces, I will be treated sacredly. All right. With that being said, thank you so much for joining. I wish you a pleasant week ahead. Stay safe, take care of your heart, and I'll see you in the next session. Bye bye.